we'll return to the agenda. The next item is Redan Reserve update with respect to the Country Club of Woodbridge. I don't know if everyone knows this, perhaps you all do, but Yale University has determined that it will not be going forward with the Redan proposal. Now, as we all know, Yale was the linchpin to this, and the way we pursued it was negotiations with Roland Betts and Redan Reserve on behalf of the town to see what kind of deal we could work out, while being very clear from the beginning as a unanimous Board of Selectmen that we would not approve anything and certainly not bring anything to the town for a vote until we had some affirmation from Yale that they were interested in this. That goes in part to Bob Hill's point. I know Joe Dye, who's couldn't be here this evening, was very clear about that. At more than one meeting, we reiterated that the Board of Selectmen was unanimous that we needed to hear from Yale. Now, although Mr. Betts suggested, both in conversations and most recently in writing, that he had an agreement with Yale, in one of the emails that have been talked about and passed around, he said that he was not going to continue with Woodbridge, but would be starting on the Yale course in the spring of 2017. He had some specifics. At that point, I called Yale to say, well, I see you must have an agreement. And in fact, Yale, at that point, they had not made a decision. But since then, they have made a decision. So at least for the foreseeable future, this project is off the table, and Yale University made that decision. I think that's very important to know. As with respect to these emails that are being passed around, if anyone has questions here or in the public, I encourage them to call me or to read the email that I very carefully wrote and sent to Mr. Betts to make sure we laid out the facts. In checking about the position of Yale University, I spoke with Bruce Alexander. Bruce is currently the Vice President for New Haven and State Affairs and Campus Development. He is the person I've been in touch with at Yale throughout this project. He's the person that Mr. Betts identified as the person to be in touch with. And he and I spoke about this, and he was clear that Yale is not interested in the project, and that it was an independent decision. Of course, it had nothing to do with the town of Woodbridge. Now, Maria, I know you've raised on more than one occasion the fact that you think Bruce Alexander is not high enough up at Yale for me to speak with. He wanted me to convey to you that if you would like to speak with him, I can coordinate that call so that you can be satisfied as well that we've spoken to somebody high enough. In my opinion, Bruce Alexander is one of the most distinguished members of the Yale management team, and certainly near the very top, if not the top, in certain areas. So I disagree with you wholeheartedly on that, and I have been in touch with him. So that is the status. And if there are any questions?
I just want to I just wanted to report that I had a very recent conversation with Mr. Betts, because I was there at the Yale Medal awardee for him, where they awarded him because he was he's by far one of the biggest fundraisers of the university, and also he himself has given a lot of money to Yale. But anyway, he clearly implied to me that they were still in negotiations, and that it's very likely that he may come back about this. So, so I hope that's the case, and yeah, that's all.
Okay. And just to be clear, Maria, we've talked about this before. You would prefer to see a golf course than open space?
Well, when I found out about the cost of open space, which was just very recently in the last two. When was that? When did Tony finally come up with it was quite expensive, and I think that while I am the biggest proponent of open space, I think we should try to find a different way, a different thing for the golf course. I mean, right now, what are we going to do? We're going to sit here and wait for something? Is that what we're going to do? What are we doing with the golf course?
Right now, what we're talking about is converting it to open space and cleaning it up, and having it be a recreational opportunity for the entire town of Woodbridge.
Well, all that sounds really good, but it's going to cost us a bunch of money. And at the last budget hearing, meeting here, it was very clear that we, according to Tony, that if we bonded for more than 2 million, and we have many needs. We have the, what do you call that? The radio the radio communication thing for the police and the fire people is about $2 million already, and then there's I believe there's some other things. If you put them together, we cannot afford that 2 million to bond for open space. So are we going to sit and wait for something to happen, or are we going to do what I would suggest would be a proper thing, would be to probably answer the question that Mr. Lober just presented to us, or really market this in the best way we can, which I'm not impressed with the efforts that we've put on this in the past.
But you want to market it without any development, is that correct? No,
Without
you say
any development, with
development.
conservation easement.
Right. Okay.
Well, Mr. Betts came to us.
It seems to me that we had a proposal that had a conservation easement, that gave us a lot of money, that addressed a fair number of the constituencies in this town, but was anathema to a lot of people.
I'm sorry.
It does have a conservation easement. No, it has development.
Excuse me, this is not.
Are you talking
Please.
about Toll Brothers?
Look,
Over Dan?
I'm talking about, no.
What are you talking about?
I'm just saying that proposal, the Toll Brothers proposal,
All right.
addressed gave a lot of people a lot of what they wanted, including.
Excuse me, you're out of order, Adrian. You're going to have to control yourself. Well, please control yourself.
First of all, it's not on the agenda, so I'm incorrect for bringing it up. Okay.
Well,
But excuse me.
You just said it's not on the agenda.
okay, you will have to leave the room if you can't control yourself. Last warning.
But I'm addressing a point that was brought up by a
Perfectly
fellow
fine to
Selectman.
discuss this.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not giving it a pro or a con. I'm saying that's what was before the town for a number of years. It included partial development, retention by the town of, I don't know, remember 120 acres with a conservation easement. It kept the pool open. The clubhouse was taken care of. I'm just laying it out. That's what was there.
Well,
So stop there.
okay.
Just for clarity, when you say you don't want open space because now it's too expensive, Redan is bye-bye, Billy Casper is bye-bye, that's the thing that's left. If you don't want to develop it as very expensive open space. You can always go back to that proposal, which to a lot of people is very viable, notwithstanding that the loudest voices in the room were against it.
Susan.
Point of information.
Excuse me, no points of information. We're not hearing from the public. No, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just answering what you said, that's all.
Okay, but may I answer you back? The, in order to have the development that Toll Brothers proposes, you need a zoning change, and we know that there's a whole lot of problem that goes with that. I was not,
And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with either of those characterizations. I'm just
Right.
saying, I don't think that fully played out. That's all.
Well,
That part of
also-
it did not fully play out.
Okay, and then the other thing is, I think Toll Brothers has a very wrong definition of a conservation development, okay? I was in a
Well,
workshop.
That, I don't know whether they do or they don't. I'm not here to speak for Toll Brothers.
Okay,
But from
but
our point of view, we could have,
Right, but let me
And
just
still, I mean, I don't
clarify
even
what
know
I
if-
just said.
Okay,
What
I
a
think
co-
we're going to end it after this unless
Okay,
there's some
fair
new
enough.
point. 'cause we
I
have
just
to
want to
vote.
make a different point.
fair enough.
Let me just make a different point. I agree with some of the things you're saying. I certainly agree with some of the things Susan's saying as well. However, the point I want to make is, and I think Ellen was referring to it earlier, we're not proposing, I haven't had a discussion here at this board, we're actually proposing to spend $2 million on open space
Correct,
at this
that's
time.
correct.
What we're
That's
letting
correct.
people know is eventually, if this property were to go to open space and for uses, long-term, we would have to spend that kind of money for both cleanup, removal of the building, those type of costs. However,
Exactly.
I don't think we've discussed at this board, that I've been part of, anything that said we are prepared to spend any of that kind of money at this time to keep it as open space. What we've said is, no proposals on the table at this point, with Redan pulling out. We have, the property is still ours. We're still holding the asset. I don't think anybody at this table is prepared to say at this point they wouldn't be happy to hear about other offers. I think offers can still come to us. We still own the property. But we
That's
do
correct.
have to maintain it to some level. And what we discussed, as far as I'm hearing, what I've been part of, is that we would do that at the least amount of cost, open space wise, to make it still viable property for people to use best we can, while not spending a lot of money and making any large decisions too quickly. We still have to make a decision eventually, to Dr. David Lober's point, about the building. We still have to make a decision on when we're gonna do the cleanup that would be eventually necessary and how. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just trying to clarify, we've had no discussions here to make those kind of cost analysis that we're gonna put into the budget right now.
Correct.
We've just tried to let the public know what it would be
Correct.
long-term. And I think there's a little disconnect on what we're prepared to
I just
spend
want
at
to
this
be,
point.
but my point was that
There was
discussion does not happen in a vacuum.
Correct.
That's the point.
I agree.
And I
with
just
that.
want to, I just
Okay.
do want to clarify
Yes.
also, I agree with your characterization, Tony, but I just do want to be clear that the dollars we've been talking about are to take care of needs that we have to do no matter what. It does not include, if we wanted to add any kind of recreational opportunity, that's a vision going forward. And this will all be part of our budget discussion, what we want to put in the budget for now. And we may want to do some of the remediation this year. We may want to space it out over time. You know, these are all things for us to discuss. But in terms of the magnitude of the money, that amount is just to do things that we have to do one way or another. If some proposal comes to us that the board feels is acceptable and the town feels acceptable, that brings in some revenue, that would certainly help us. But we're not there
Can I
yet.
make one last point to that?
Sure.
And to that, to the remediation, you know, I want to make it clear, because sometimes I hear from the public, regardless of who comes to buy the property and all of these plans, the remediation cost is going to be on us
On the
one way
town,
or another.
yes, we know that.
And so if somebody offers us $1 million, and we've had offers even less than $1 million for that property, it's going to cost us probably upward of $800,000 just to turn over the property.
Right. Yep.
So,
Correct.
you know, I want everybody to be sure you understand, when we were offered $700,000 on one offer, we were offered, I think, $500,000 on one and $1 million on one. It's basically saying the town would have to forfeit the property for free, because we'll have to pay more, or almost as much, as those offers, just to turn over the property, to turn it over clean. So there is, I just want, and I'm not saying, clearly we're eventually, as Ellen said, gonna have to clean that property. And we're trying to do it completely by the state's rules, and Deep has been here, and everybody's come, and we are within the boundaries of doing everything in a timely fashion. We did take care of the immediate concern. We are all concerned here about what other cleanup has to be done, but that cost is gonna be on us. So when you hear an offer, I just wanna make it clear, that offer, you have to take that cost first off of that offer for what the town's gonna do. And right now, we have no
Just to
more
be
offers.
clear, there's no offer.
Currently, we have no more.
Last comment is Beth. and then-
That's all I'm saying. There's no
Number
offer.
one, there is no offer, I was gonna say that.
Right,
Number
with
two,
the
we
twelve.
still have a debt on this property of
Oh,
$5 million.
that's
$5 million right
$5 million.
now.
And that
So
would
that's
pay off
something
as
to
well.
think about.
Yes.
Not that it's fun to
Okay.
talk
No
about
offer.
that, but
The
we still have a $5 million
ongoing, as I
debt.
say, it's the ongoing saga of the
Yeah.
country
The
club.
ongoing
But at
saga.
this point,
I know.
Yale has made its decision. Okay, Tony,
Yes.
we will start with your monthly report.
Okay. There's not all that much to report to you. The monthly report projected surplus for the year is a little under $200,000. The primary items are a $75,000 grant for school construction that we hope to get this year. The $70,000 that we received for the sale of the equipment, golf equipment that we discussed earlier, that was not budgeted for, so that's additional revenue. And we have a small surplus in our insurance so far. Well, I'll be calculating the wages going forward and hope to have a report on that in January based on the contracts that were adopted at just recently. And so that'll have an impact on this also, which I can hopefully fully report at the next meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Tony?
Just one quick one. I'm assuming what Bob Gilbert told us tonight hasn't adjusted yet, that we may have a little more of a shortfall than.
Correct. I just
But that's
recently found that out too,
fluid.
so that'll also be in our next report, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
Okay.
Next item is tax refunds. We have a recommendation by our tax collector to refund property taxes in the amount of $3,656.34 as specified in the accompanying documents. Is there a motion to approve these refunds?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Not all those in favor?
I'd like to make one discussion. I'm going to
Oh.
recuse myself because there's 2 Heller kid cars that are on there. So I'm going to get a little bit of money back. So I'm going to recuse
Okay,
myself.
Beth is recusing herself. Otherwise, all those in
Thanks.
favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. And funding requests. Let's see, the first is funding request 161703 in the amount of $22,000. I think I'll make the motion, we'll second, and then we'll have the discussion. And this is for repair and maintenance, building line of the building maintenance budget, as Tony will explain. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Tony.
So this is to fund the repair and maintenance line in the building maintenance budget. If you remember at the capital budget meeting, Brad went into some detail about the repairs at the library, and that's what the majority of this is for. We also had a failure of our generator in Public Works, which, if you remember, was moved from the old firehouse, so it wasn't a new generator from the building.
Yeah, that old thing.
Right.
I remember
So that failed also. So those are the 2 primary items that were required. This is, we're going to see if we can, if we have another unanticipated failure, we may need to come back to you for more funds, but this we're hoping to get us through for the time being.
So,
Any, Maria?
Yeah.
question. This funding is coming from what budget?
From contingency, yeah.
Oh, okay, got
It's
it.
on the second page of
Yeah, all
the.
right. Let me see what you mean.
Anything else? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. I'll now move funding request 161704 in the amount of $25,000. And this is to hire an engineering firm to develop specifications to improve the HVAC system at the library. Tony, do you want to?
This is, again, was discussed at the capital budget meeting and was recommended that we bring this forward earlier than the budget process so that we can start the investigation so that perhaps we can do the actual fix in next year's budget.
We talked about that a little bit.
How much
Oh.
is there is it?
We don't have a dollar figure. We have to, we had received some quotes, but in order to do this properly, we'll have to go off an RFP and get actual, but this was roughly the amount of the quote we received, so we're hoping it's,
This one's been bouncing around for a while,
yeah,
this issue.
this has,
Yes,
yes.
for a long time.
Yeah, and it's particularly, well, you remember
Yeah.
from the meeting, it was bad this
I'm
summer.
just worried about the collection. The sooner
Yeah.
the better.
Of course.
So we
Really
can get it
scary
done
stuff.
for this
Pulling
summer.
that water
That's the
out of
idea,
it.
is to get it done for this summer.
Yeah,
Totally.
good, yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Any other questions? Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Anything else, Tony?
Nope.
Okay, we're now going to Betsy Yagla's Assistant Administrative Officer's report.
I know. Papers are-
Item to update you all on, the Conservation Commission has recommended pursuing a state grant to purchase the Nugent property on Litchfield Turnpike. This is something we had discussed previously. And the grant requires 2 appraisals. And so we're done probably 90% of the work, maybe 95% of the work last year when we attempted to apply for this grant. So we're working on getting updates to the appraisals. I've heard from all members of the family that own the property. They're interested in pursuing discussions. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that we're moving forward with that.
Can I just ask you where that is on Litchfield?
It's
Right by my house.
It's surrounded by state land and town land. It's near where you live. It's near
Okay.
On the other side
the
of
Darling
the-
House.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's across the street from Darling House is the
Oh.
gateway to it,
I
right?
know exactly where it is.
Discussions about this property
Yeah.
before.
Yes.
It's on the other side of the water.
Right.
If you walk across.
No, exactly where it is.
side as Darling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about,
The park.
what's
Yeah.
his name's
Right.
name?
You haven't walked it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Conservation Commission feels this is a very important parcel because it is sort of landlocked between this state land and town-owned land, and this missing parcel could connect some trails that right now are disjointed.
And if I can add to it, I'm sorry. Ellen and I happened to go on a trail walk there, and at that time, either the property owners or somebody decided to put up wood logs, trees that were down to block the path, and some signage. They didn't want people to walk through, and so therefore it disconnected the trails.
Even more.
And so that was one of the reasons why they've had issues.
I think we had a more detailed conversation about this last year.
Right.
And then it turned out that the Mr. Nugent, who lives in Woodbridge, had expressed some interest, but there's a larger family involved.
Right, that's
And
what-
Betsy's been in touch with the family, who
You're right.
now
Thank you
we
for
think
reminding
are.
us.
And it's a priority for the Conservation Commission, it's not clear. You were against it at one point, right?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I was in touch with the family, and they couldn't get together on a price, which is really was the big stumbling block.
Well, my point was you can't develop it. It's very hard to develop. So why does the town need to buy it?
Oh, it was because of connecting the trail.
Oh.
It wasn't to prevent
And the
development.
current owners allow hunting on there, so even if those blocks you talked about were not there, it would not necessarily be a
conducive to
good
walking.
idea to walk through there.
Oh, I see.
Now they do.
No, we didn't walk it. Okay. Any other
And the
questions for
appraisals haven't
Betsy?
come out, so you don't know how much it's going to be, right?
We had appraisals last year, we just need to update them to make sure that the value is current. The state requires the appraisals to be within 1 year of the grant. They moved the grant deadline a smidge, so we're like 10 days outside of the appraisals.
How much was it then? How much was the appraisal then?
There were 2 that came in, do you remember?
It's around 200.
Something, it was around,
I don't remember the.
there was one that was a little under 200 and there was one that was a little above 200. So it was around 200, but I don't remember what the average of the 2 appraisals was.
And the appraisals are important also because we would be applying for a state grant. Nobody is intending to purchase this without the state grant, which represents a large percent of the purchase price, but I don't recall how much.
I want to say it's 60 or 65%.
I think
We
it's
have-
at least 75%. I think it's pretty high.
Well, it was
Very, very
a,
high. It was a good.
that was
we-
part of the discussion.
And the only other part of it is, we have up to a certain amount in our open space fund, where you don't have to actually go out to borrow the money.
Right.
Because we have, it's about 78,000, roughly.
right, whatever it was at last year when we looked at it, it was sufficient
It was just enough to
to make
cover.
up the town's
Right.
portion. So, okay, thank you, Betsy. And back to Betsy, item number 8 is authorize the first selectman to sign an MOU with the Connecticut Green Bank to accept $4,500 in a grant to be used for LED light conversion at the library. And I just want to commend Betsy and others who work with her. It's because we are doing such a good job on conservation here in town that we are eligible for these additional benefits from the state. So, Betsy, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, so the town has earned a $4,500 grant from the Green Bank, and we would like to use it to do an LED lighting upgrade at the library. So this is what I just passed out to you is the standard MOU that the state uses for this project. Jerry reviewed it this afternoon. So we'd like to go forward and move this. The payback for the LED program is less than a year, so it's a really great investment. The library would save a lot of energy on their lighting.
Would we be investing any money other than the $4,500?
We do have another grant, so I don't have the final numbers on what the conversion would be, but it would probably cost more than $4,500, but we have another grant that the Energy Task Force has earned. So we would be putting the 2 grants together, so there would the grants would more than cover the lighting cost, I believe.
Very impressive. Good job.
So is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to sign the MOU?
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or
Can I just
discussion?
ask Jerry, you reviewed it?
Yes,
nothing,
nothing, standard agreement, and I actually reviewed the document that was attached that Ed Sheehy signed
Yeah, I
in
saw it.
July 27, 2012, that I remember going over with him. Thank you.
Anything else? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Grants are music to my ears.
The next item is to approve installation of solar panels on the library. This also is an environmental benefit that we have earned by our efforts. Do you want to speak to that, Betsy?
Sure. So I shared this with all of you at last month's meeting. I wanted to just give you a heads up at last month's meeting. Susan had a question about a potential other location that I explored with the company that would be installing these on the library for free. That location did not make sense, so he has advised me, Aegis Solar is the company, has advised me that the library is the best spot for these free solar panels, and that this particular roof on the library is the best spot. And I've confirmed that with maintenance and our building official that the solar panels would be fine with the age, and the roof would be able to withstand the weight of solar panels there.
Where is it here?
So if this is the circle entrance of the
Oh, I see.
library,
I see what you mean.
yeah, it's these panels off to the side.
It's like facing the firehouse. That's facing north.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
And again, they're covering all the costs. It's our benefit of
Yeah.
signing up the people. and-
Exactly. So this is a thank you gift to the town that was part of the solar challenge.
So I'm gonna suggest that we look into getting a little plaque for the building that says that these solar panels are from the efforts of the Woodbridge
town.
community.
That's a great idea.
The Woodbridge townspeople participating in the
Sounds
blah, blah,
great.
blah, whatever it was, I forget what it was called. Because I think it should be signified somehow, and if they're way up there, we'll never know. That's a great idea.
Plaque won't go on the roof up.
No, have the plaque eye level, so we can see it.
So is there a motion to approve the installation of the
So
panels?
moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thanks, Betsy.
Okay, now, I know I appointed an ad hoc committee, but it has a really fancy name now.
Is that okay?
I love it. It's great. So,
Instead of being a pound.
well, we never call it
or-
a panel.
Yeah, it could be a
Animal
dog
shelter.
pound or. The
So,
animals are resting there.
That's
That's a respite. They're having a little time there before they find their forever homes.
so we have a report next from Beth, who is the chair of the Animal Respite Facility Building Committee. And serving on the committee with Beth are Leland Torrance and Stephanie Charleglio, and they're off to a very strong start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have a written report, sorry, I'm gonna make it quick. But we've had 2 meetings. The first meeting was organizational. Tony couldn't make it because he was at an auction. Thank you,
Right.
he's making money, so that's
Right.
okay. But we kind of reviewed the materials, the steep grant, things like that. Make sure, I have to say Leland Torrance is phenomenal at finding things that I never would have known about related to architecture and things like that. He's been a real big help and continually brings questions to us, but we're making sure everything is discussed in the meetings, not on email, so nobody worry, even though we're being very good about freedom of information. Our second meeting was, I think, last week,
Yep.
and Tony came there, we went over the financials, and I think Leland and Tony are going to get together in the next month before our next meeting and begin an RFP for our architect already, so that's good, and we have a timeline at some level. Our next meeting is January 13th. Friday the 13th, but we're not afraid of it because it's all good stuff. And it's 10 o'clock in the morning. We usually meet in here. It's somewhere at Town Hall wherever we can find a space. So anybody that wants to come, please join us. And thank you, Jerry Shaw, for keeping our minutes. And I think, is there anything else I forgot?
I want to see pictures.
I just want, what?
I want to see pictures.
Oh, no, you're not going to see
I
them
have a
yet.
basic question.
Come to the meeting.
I have a basic question, and I think that maybe this has already been discussed or put forth, but
Mm-hmm.
is the site the proper site? Because, I mean, you've dug, for the water issue, you've dug several wells or something, and it's always
I
come out
didn't dig
dead.
those wells personally, so
No,
when you say you,
no.
don't worry. I would never do that, but those were done prior to, the wells were dug prior to our committee and everything
Right,
else. And
right.
actually, the second well that was dug, I believe, was
Worse
worse
than the first one,
than the
right?
first well. So this was a big reason for starting. One of the things I can report to you is Stephanie sent a letter to the Regional Water Authority, and they may be actually looking at giving us some help in terms of the estimated costs. So it won't be as bad because originally it came back at $130,000,
Wow.
which would eat up a lot of our grant.
Right.
So we're working on that,
So
and
they're
maybe.
digging a different well now?
No, they were
No,
bring the
we're
water.
gonna run a water line.
City water.
Straight-
Oh,
We're gonna run a water line, I'm
wonderful.
sorry.
It has to be extended.
Right,
Yeah.
it's gonna go from, I guess it goes as far as Lunar Drive, so
Right.
we're gonna
That's
extend
great.
it.
That's great.
And that will help, and maybe getting a discount on that. I don't want to say discount out loud, but I just did. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna do that, and
No, that's appreciated.
it's a very,
really.
very good thing. And we're looking at other things that we can maybe save money on, and people. And we have a fabulous project. One Big Dog is going to be our side, not related
Your
to the
mascot-
town,
mascot?
raising money. And again, Leland has come up with some serious people who are going to donate, as well as he's looking into grant opportunities, and we're very excited
So
about
when you
that.
say one big dog, you mean like a person?
That's the name of the.
That's-
That's the name of the 5013C.
Aha.
Yep,
you-
named
you
after-
lost me there.
Do you remember
Okay.
Bridget Albert? That was her
Yeah.
license plate on her car.
It was one big.
So,
I would not. Have
So
remembered.
that's how they named it. And
Okay.
there's a committee. So, and the location, by the way, we have to go there, because that was when we applied for the steep grant. We can't move it or we lose the
No,
steep,
that's
so.
fine, I just wanted to make
Right,
sure.
no, I agree.
It has been
And,
under your consideration.
Yep,
There's a 10-year restriction that you must
Correct.
keep it at that location for 10 years if you accept money from the state.
for that
It's-
particular steep grant organization that awarded us the grant. I guess I didn't realize there's different parts of,
I was
they
just
come
concerned
from
about the water
different
supply,
groups.
that's why.
Departments, yeah, for steep,
It's
so.
also, it's not an easy facility to relocate. I mean, there's not many people would
Want
want
it to be
the
in
animals.
the
Yeah, right,
neighborhood,
that's
Yeah,
not in
and
my backyard.
we're also looking into how we're gonna figure out where the animals are gonna be while we're building. So there's all sorts of moving parts, but we're off to a rip-roaring start, and I'm just so excited.
Oh, I think I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
too.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Beth.
Thank you.
To Maria's point, though, I mean, the water, obviously, we've been talking about for a while now, tying into the city line. But for the air quality, I know that it's been discussed, there is some air quality controls that can be done when redoing the building, different
Oh, yeah.
ventilation, it's
Right.
different, so I think the air
That's
quality was
all-
also a concern down there.
That's
Right.
part
That
of
we've
the
heard.
design, that will be
Correct.
incorporated in
Yeah,
the
okay.
design.
That's part of
Can I
our
just
issue
say
down
something? I
there
just wanna
with
say
the
Keep
air
you posted.
quality.
So I was down there the other day because we had to we lost our dog and we had a bunch of pillows and food, and given all the challenges that are down there, this place was immaculate. And I
Wonderful.
just commend them for what
Yeah,
an
they do a
amazing
great job.
job they do, and
That's excellent to hear.
they were happy to take whatever I brought, and I mean, it was as clean as you could possibly ask for under the circumstances, and that's really a fabulous
That's
a
great.
fabulous thing to be able to say. So
Yep,
anyway,
thanks. Thank you for donating, too. It's hard.
it is hard.
Thanks. I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, next item is the Personnel Committee report. The Personnel Committee met this evening before this meeting, and we discussed two of our stellar town employees. We have many, many town employees, but these two are people who have been with us, I hate to say how many years, probably close to 60 years together. And they have taken on a variety of responsibilities over time, many of which they were never compensated for or compensated inadequately. And sometimes we gave them one-time stipends, but we never really took into account their jobs as they've grown. They are also two people who perform their duties at the highest possible level, and we really appreciate it. So the two people we've talked about are Mary Ellen LaRocca, the Director of Human Services, and Stephanie Charleglio, our Town Clerk. I'll start with Mary Ellen. She has, as I said, expanded her job in so many ways, and for each of them, I'll just mention two, but there are so many things we could talk about. She is the Veterans Affairs Coordinator, and she is also our Shelter Coordinator, and that makes a huge difference for people in our town. She certainly stepped up, as she always does, last night to help, and her focus is on helping people in disasters at those moments. We are asking Mary Ellen to take on even another responsibility, and that is to create and coordinate a new community emergency response team. Apparently that's something we've had in the past, and our police chief has suggested that we reconfigure this, that we develop it again, and Mary Ellen has agreed to take on that responsibility. And this would be town residents who volunteer to be part of this committee, and in the case of an emergency, add additional hands and energy when we need people at the shelter and that kind of thing. So Mary Ellen will be taking on that new
Human shelter,
responsibility.
not the animal shelter.
The human shelter.
There was a
Sorry.
term
Yes.
for that group. I'm
tired. Yes,
Cert.
CERT. And Tony pointed out to me that perhaps in the past there was some controversy about CERT with the police department, but the police department is fully on board and supportive of this initiative. So Mary Ellen's current salary is $69,388. The recommendation is to raise it by $4,000 to $73,388. So that is the recommendation of the committee. On this first item, Tony or Beth, do you want to add anything?
No, just as we talked, you might have said it, I'm sorry, but Mary Ellen's been a long-time employee, we couldn't figure it out, but at
A long
least
time.
30 years, and really, there's never been, or has, everybody's been very, very pleased. I've never heard a bad word said about her, and she does a phenomenal job. I go to the Human Services meetings every month, and she's quite a leader, so I think this is great.
And just to add, as much as I love Mary Ellen, and she's a tremendous worker, the truth is, also we asked Tony, the position, Tony keeps abreast of other towns and municipalities, and to keep us in line with what other towns and municipalities are paying salaries for these positions. So it's not just her personal job, which is phenomenal, but the truth is, we're also trying to keep in line with
Correct.
what we pay our employees based on other municipalities in the same position.
Correct.
And this helps us to get back in line with that.
All right.
So is there a motion to increase the salary of Mary Ellen LaRocca to $73,388?
So moved.
You want to
Oh,
add
effective January 1,
Effective January
2017.
1.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Is that okay in that form, or do you want it to be the amount of the raise?
Nope, that's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just question, where is that extra funding coming from? Do we have that?
So we have to reevaluate where we are with our wages, and we may have to transfer some funds to cover a portion of this, if it's
I just wanted
necessary.
to know.
Yeah.
Mhm. Anything else?
No, I did not get the first and second on that.
I made the motion, and Beth, I believe.
I seconded it.
I would just say that there are often things that happen at these meetings that does not give one pleasure. This one would give me pleasure to vote for. She's
Anything else?
more than deserving.
I think that's true for all of us. So,
Yep.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Now, with respect to Stephanie, Stephanie has a multi-page document of all that she does, and we see some of it day to day, and we don't see other things, but she is involved in so much here in the town, and also has been a town employee, I think, for 25 years, maybe more. Some of the things that Stephanie does beyond her town clerk duties, and again, there are pages of them, but I'll just mention two. She oversees and supports the work of the registrars, including elections, and all of us know what an important presence Stephanie is on election day. She also is our citation hearing official. She prepares all the background papers and assures appropriate investigation when there are citations given out in the town. So in addition to everything else that she does, we are asking her to undertake some new responsibilities, which she has agreed to. One is to become our town FOI officer, because she's already our FOI liaison, and this way we'll be consolidating FOI functions in one office, and also to make her our town archivist. We have not had an official town archivist before, but Stephanie has done quite a bit of work preserving town records and historical documents, and she's always on the lookout for grants, and so she'll be continuing to do that. I want to mention also that Stephanie has calculated that without the raise, if she retired, her income in retirement would be higher than what she was earning here in town. And we think it's important that we consider that discrepancy in making her work worthwhile. And, she is a dedicated employee, and I think does everything she does from her heart, but it is important to be compensated for the work you do. So Stephanie's current salary is $61,056, and our recommendation is to raise that to $68,556 effective January 1st. Again, Tony or Beth, anything you'd like to add?
could add the same thing, and just she's wonderful, and she does. I can't echo your words more. I mean, it's just She goes sometimes looking up for funeral directors. Call her on weekends. She has to come in if people need an absentee ballot. She's always there related to elections. She's just phenomenal, and we'd be ashamed to lose her.
Well, if I'm not mistaken,
I'm delighted.
she has been she was voted town clerk of the year by her peers.
Yes,
Correct?
that's exactly.
And that's
Good
not
point.
nothing.
Right.
So
Yep, another good point.
You know, I think Stephanie is one of the people who makes life in a small town so special.
Right.
You know, the kinds of extra things she does.
Yeah, I'll just add, similar to last time, same thing where there's a comparison done with other town clerks in similar towns, and this helps to bring her more in line. So the position more than the person, as much as we all love the person again.
It's
and I'm
structural.
Very,
Absolutely.
right, it's structural, and I'm very glad
Yep.
she's staying. But also, I want to make note that the Personnel Committee, in the last few decisions that we've made in the last few months, were able to help facilitate a savings, a substantial
Right.
savings on a few salaries by repositioning, and Tony's advice to help us to reconstruct some
Right.
of the public works and other positions. So this time, it is not a savings, however, it does bring us back in line with two very key positions, and we thought it was necessary to do so.
Thank you,
How many
Tony.
times do we walk in the office? Would you like a cup of coffee? Before we even get started with whatever.
I gotta
you
go to
need.
her office
You want a
more
cup
often.
of coffee?
Tony's always still going
She's
out to
great.
Dunkin' Donuts. He didn't
I
know.
know. You don't have to do it anymore.
We've made the motion, right? We have a motion and second or not?
No.
Okay,
I'll-
is there
I'll
a
make the
motion
motion.
to increase Stephanie Troliglio's salary to $68,556?
Effective January 1st.
Effective January 1st, 2017.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Second.
thank you. Anything else?
once again, a lot here that happens is not pleasurable. This one's pleasurable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you. Town council.
Okay, I just have a few, Tony, a few short things, I hope, so we'll get out of here so you can vote. Well, you voted. Subsidence, I just wanted to report back to you all about the subsidence agreement. Everything has been signed, sealed, and delivered to the attorneys for the Department of Economic and Community Development. They in turn will I hope they've sent it over to the Attorney General for his approval. Once he approves it, we get copies of the signed agreements by the Attorney General, and the money is deposited in the town's account for distribution under approved projects. We will have to engage a project manager an engineer to do the necessary work before any funds are released, but Tony and Betsy are already on top of that rule. So that's already done. I also have heard many comments about the property on Amity Road, the old Chancola property. And I just thought that because so many people have given us some feedback about the condition that it's in, it'd be good to report to you about what we have been doing over the past, it's actually over the past year or so, maybe even longer, that Terry Gilbertson has been involved. The property doesn't look great. There were broken windows. There is all kinds of trash on the side of the property. There's a dumpster there that seems to be used for the community as a whole. People apparently are putting things in that dumpster, and it's not cleaned up. We've been trying to get it cleaned up for a while. Terry Gilbertson a while ago sent them a formal letter saying they were in violation of the town's blight ordinance. And I have recently made contact with the attorney for the current owners, and he said that they are in the process of doing something with the building. They've been trying for 20 years to sell or lease the property for an appropriate use, and they have been totally unsuccessful. You know, these owners are real estate developers, and they've never had a property, from what the lawyer told me, that has been so difficult to market. But they're still trying, and hopefully at some point it is going to be marketed for an appropriate use. But right now, we need the property to be cleaned up, and I'm meeting with Terry and Chris Sullivan tomorrow to decide our next steps in trying to get at least some semblance of cleanup, particularly with regard to the trash that is on the side of the building. It's very hard for us to go into the building and put windows in.
It does look like something's happening there.
There is something happening. There are some cars inside. They've gotten rid of the broken windows, and they put plywood on the windows. It still looks horrific from what most people have been saying. And we're on top of it, and hopefully we'll have some positive results. It would be great if they could sell the property and also get an owner in who is willing to do something that is consistent with the neighborhood. That's number one. Number two, the owners owe significant amounts of money to the town for taxes. They've stopped paying the taxes over the last period of time. We have started a foreclosure, so we are putting pressure on the owners to get our money. Their lawyer has said that they intend to pay off the taxes, hopefully sooner rather than later. So while it's an awful eyesore, we were in the process of trying to do what needs to be done to get it back in shape. So that's the subsidence that you call the third item that I just want to report to briefly, and this was, I wouldn't ordinarily report about this, but Tony raised it in an email to, I guess, started with Jerry Shore, and Maria asked for a time slot to discuss this at tonight's meeting. This is
the August 24 minutes?
Board of Selectmen meeting, right?
Yeah,
And the complaint that was asserted by one of our residents, Mr. Hotchkiss, about what was said at that meeting. There was an August 24th, 2016 meeting of the Board of Selectmen concerning the repeal of the Country Club of Woodbridge ordinance. And there was much discussion. Tony, you've gone over some of the minutes and you know about it. And this is a good opportunity for us to just give you some preliminary information. Ordinarily, as I said, I wouldn't bring it up. I was preparing a formal response to the letter, and that will be going out within the next couple of days. But since there's been so much interest, and Maria said that you've received some questions from residents about it.
Yeah.
So Mr. Hotchkiss sent a letter to, actually it was addressed to Jerry Shaw initially, and complaining about the meeting that occurred on August 24th. And what he did is he asked for some kind of a retraction or removing an entirety of a marked paragraph of those minutes, and also to change the language to fit the facts.
Yes.
The assertion was, at that meeting, there were several discussions going back and forth about why the Country Club of Woodbridge ordinance should be repealed. Many members of the board had their own reasons, and Ellen commented that there was the chairman of the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission, Mr. Hotchkiss, was sent a letter, and I'll just read you, has been writing to area golf courses telling them to make proposals to the town, raid the country club. And that's verbatim from the minutes, and that was a quote that was attributed to Ellen. And Mr. Hotchkiss took offense at that language and wrote a letter to us, to the town, saying that he thought that those comments might be were untrue and could constitute a slander or a libel. In my opinion, I've looked at the comments, I've looked at the minutes, and what Ellen said was absolutely true. And as most of us know, any kind of, you can't have a slander if there is a truthful statement. And I'll just hand out to you a copy of letters that Ellen received from one of the area country club owners, which forwarded Mr. Hotchkiss's letter to that club, which essentially says, makes a proposal to, and it starts by, you should consider making a proposal to lease golf courses at Country Club of Woodbridge from the town. And then he goes on to talk about potential terms. So what Ellen said was absolutely true from the information that I have received, and I will write to Mr. Hotchkiss and tell him that we believe that the statements made at the meeting by Ellen were truthful, as is evidenced by this letter that Ellen received from one of the clubs. And the language, in my opinion, is not even defamatory. It's just a repetition of a fact that was happening, and Ellen wanted to bring it to the Board of Selectmen's attention for their consideration. And I think that's basically it. And again, I will respond, and I wouldn't have mentioned it, I would have done it, but there's been some interest in it. Maria, do you have any other questions about it?
Let me just read this, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, while Maria's reading this, I mean, my recollection, August was a long time ago, but my recollection is that although I recall Ellen making the statements with reference to this, the thrust of the vote was that because Billy Casper was out and there was no more golf, that was really the reason why we were prepared to repeal the ordinance, not because of any one person's actions.
Right.
Correct?
I think,
Yeah.
as I
That's as I recall
I
it.
haven't looked, I believe what happened was Maria thought we should wait to do it, and was there any other reason we were doing it at that time?
Right.
And one of the reasons I thought we should do it was to avoid any confusion in the public, given that I had this document.
See, and I didn't even
But
yeah.
you're right, that was not why we took the action.
We took the
It was
action.
another fact that Ellen made you aware of that was happening, and as a matter of fact, it says that another reason why it's appropriate is this situation.
Okay.
But certainly it was based
Yes.
primarily on the fact that we're not in the golf business any longer. Casper is not going to be here after December 31st, and there was no purpose that the Country Club Commission could serve going forward.
I mean, that's my recollection and why I.
That's right.
And I
And
think that was
I have the minutes.
I think
and
that was
you
the
all-
thrust of the
right.
board.
And the minutes are online, if anybody
Yeah,
wants
so
to see them.
if I can just add that is my recollection completely, and I do remember Ellen basically saying as a way, why, I think it may have even you, somebody besides Maria may have asked why it needed to be done quick, and it was more of a, well, this is one of the reasons why we might want to avoid prolonging it for no reason.
Right.
But in any case, I agree. I also want to make one quick statement. As far as I'm concerned, there is no reason, if the minutes were taken accurately, and I believe they were, I did look at them, and I don't see any reason why this board would vote to change minutes because they were taken accurately. I believe the statements that were made were quantified the right, proper way. And unless an individual member decides that they made a statement and they felt it was different and needed to clarify it, I don't see a reason. I did receive an email as well from Mr. Hotchkiss, and I was concerned enough to make sure that I looked at the minutes, but I do feel very strongly we should not be changing minutes based on this request
Did we
for
approve
this
that?
particular.
Yes.
Yeah. it
Yes,
was
the minutes were
approved
approved,
already.
and you're absolutely right, Tony.
They should be left as.
If the minutes are wrong in any way, then there could be discussion as to whether they should be amended. But if they're correct and they're truthful, there is no reason to, and as a matter of fact, I don't think you're allowed to.
And I don't think there's any
Just
reason
as a
in this
point of
case.
information, Mr. Hotchkiss
look at
did
it.
file a Freedom of Information request seeking any documents or any of the letter that was that he sent out, and we did comply within a couple of weeks, and we sent him his own letter back for a point of information. So he has that letter, and we have all the documents, and I will respond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maria, do you have anything else? Because you asked for it to.
No, I'm sorry. I was not aware of this, but I also, he's someone who knows golf in town very well and also wants to move it forward. So probably because we had one proposal we've been sitting on for several years, he felt that, it was just a good thing for him to do that. And what he told me was, yes, he owns a realty, he's a realty person, but anything that came out of this went directly to you.
Well, nothing came out of it. I don't know what you mean by that.
He said that there was maybe one interest that came out of this, and that it went directly to you and not to him.
Oh, I wouldn't know. Nobody called me to say, oh, I'm responding to Deke Hotchkiss's email.
Okay.
Nobody said that to me. No.
Maria, can I just ask you, what was the proposal we were sitting on for a year? Or
Oh,
several years?
we only
Maybe
have
I
one.
misunderstood.
We only have
I'm
one
sorry.
proposal. We only had a Toll Brothers proposal for the golf course, and I think being that he loves golf, he loves golf here, he wants to move it forward. I think he was thinking that he was doing a good thing by asking people around to see if they would be interested in the golf course.
And no one said, Ellen didn't say he was doing a bad thing.
Right.
All right.
It was he's just
Thank you.
reporting on a fact that the
Exactly.
chairperson
Okay.
was.
Yeah, I didn't mean, I wasn't certainly not questioning his intentions. I
No,
think his
right.
intentions
No,
are great.
Nobody
And I
questions
think
his
he's been
intentions.
doing
Nobody
good.
did.
We're just trying to straighten out
Right,
the
no.
minutes, and in my opinion, the minutes are accurate.
Right,
Okay.
And in my opinion, there was no untruthful statements.
right.
All right. Good.
Anything else?
Fine.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Town clerk's report. I'll make a motion that we acknowledge receipt of the town clerk's report for the period November 1 through November 30, 2016, and July 1 through November 30, 2016. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Next we have approved meeting dates for 2017. Thank you, Mrs. Shaw, for putting this together for us. Are there any questions or comments about this proposal? If not, I will make a motion that we approve the meeting dates for 2017 as set forth in the memorandum from Jerry Shaw dated November 15th, 2016.
Second.
Thank you. Anything else on this? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Minutes. We have the minutes of the special meeting of October 26, 2016. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Tony? You're okay? Oh,
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, good. If not, all those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. First Selectman's report. I'd like to start my report actually on a somber note. Two passings this last month that are important to our town. One was Lillian Rothberg, Nan Birdwhistle's mother-in-law, a longtime Woodbridge resident and a matriarch of the Rothberg family, and we extend our condolences to the entire Rothberg family and, of course, to Nan. Also, as you all know, I'm sure, David King passed away. He was a very distinguished member of our Board of Finance and distinguished in many other ways as well. The memorial service is this Sunday. I don't have the details right here, but if anyone is interested, we can provide that. And we certainly extend our condolences to Diane and to the entire family. And it's a great loss for the town of Woodbridge. So we're very sorry about that.
It's at Quinnipiac, and I think it's
Sunday.
1 o'clock? I know it's at Quinnipiac. You think
Haven?
1
I
o'clock?
think it's 1, that's what I have written down.
Yes.
Okay.
1 o'clock
So
on Sunday?
yes.
Yes.
My report will be pretty short. I've been very busy over the last month. My dad's been very ill, and I want to thank Beth for covering many events for me. But I was able to attend the town's interfaith service, which is one of the most beautiful town events. It was wonderful, hosted at B'nai Jacob this year. And I just would like to mention one thing that I said. I mean, we talked about how much we have to be grateful for in Woodbridge, and I think this event at the JCC brings it all home to us again, what a wonderful community it is. Excuse me. Again, there are so many things. Our town employees are generous resident volunteers who do so much for us. And I do want to mention also our increasing diversity in our town, both ethnically, racially, and with respect to religions. And I believe our diversity makes us a strong and resilient community and helps us meet today's challenges and those that lie ahead. So we are very blessed to live in this town. We see that every day, and I wanted to add that. And somewhat related, I attended an event at the JCC the day after the interfaith service. Governor Malloy called the meeting, and there were area people there and quite a bit of press, including the Wall Street Journal, where Governor Malloy reiterated his commitment to protect immigrants in the state of Connecticut. And I applaud him for that, and I was very pleased and proud to be present at that event. And with that, we'll do liaison reports. Maria?
I was not able to attend. Let me start with the liaison for the education department. The Board of Ed. I did attend the November 17 meeting, and I don't think I can do any better in reporting about them than the superintendent of school does. But they did talk about the solar panels and how these things are working out, and the micro turbine, etc. That was it, and the rest he already reported. Now, I missed the meeting for the Recreation Commission, but I know what their main concerns are, and which is basically what is going to happen to the pool is their major thing. I have nothing else to report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Tony,
library.
we expect you to report for yourself and for Joe.
I'm going to. I might report for the rest of the
And
team. I still want to see pictures. As far as library commission,
Don't worry.
you're going to see pictures. So the library commission, most of the talk has been things are going very well. Obviously, it's back and running since the water problem that was there. The obvious issue budget-wise, which is the HVAC system. And there were some new chairs purchased, and long-term they need some more. But bottom line is things are going very well at the library. As far as, and their next meeting is this coming Monday. As town plan and zoning, I have been meeting regularly. Their last meeting was last night, quite a long meeting right here in this room. There were 5 public hearings, most of which were for home office use. There was one for signage and one down on Grimaldi's, which they're going to come back to. Others were all only because there's some question about the signage, the lighting of it, the size of it. But they will be coming back. And the others were approved, home office uses, including 1 or 2 that were actually renewals. And then the larger discussion was with Leslie Crean. As you may know, they hired her to do some planning. And the planning is in an effort to consolidate some of our zoning in our commercial area and come up with some additional ideas. Most of the area that has been discussed is basically on the other side of Bradley Road, over the bridge, towards Lunar, towards Research. So there's quite an in-depth discussion going on about how to classify both businesses and buildings and whether development is potential down there and that type of thing. Development of residential as well as commercial. So anybody who's inclined to want to come out and be part of that discussion, I suggest you do it soon. This is the second meeting that they had full discussion of their proposals of what she's proposing that our TP&Z take up. And they'll be coming to some kind of conclusion soon on that. So you might want to stay tuned to that. There's a lot of information. That's it.
Thank you.
I couldn't make inland wetlands last month. I had another meeting, and actually I'll be Mrs. Claus for the December meeting, so I don't know. I'll try to get the minutes for you guys and update you on inland wetlands. Fire Commission, they also took a moment to remember David King. He was liaison at one point to fire, and he will be sorely missed. I think Sean mentioned at the last meeting that the calls are up 43%. Yeah, so I'll skip that too. Also 10 members, you'll be hearing about that further in the budget. They've got another 10 new members, which is a good thing, but it's also going to impact gear and the medical expense line items for physicals and things like that. The computer line item was zeroed, I guess, last year, but it's now over budget, so I guess they're going to do a line item to cover it. Hopefully you know about that. I'm not giving you, they tell you everything, I'm sure, so you're on top of that.
Yep.
Right now, all the trucks are going through their annual inspection, and so far so good. Let's see, the radio system that was supposed to move from 125 Bradley to 21 Bradley, has
Tomorrow, I think it is.
Oh, okay. At this meeting, they said it was happening the next day, so I guess something happened.
Yeah, there was a delay from Frontier, but they're supposed to cut the line over tomorrow.
Okay, so there's the update from that. They're also working on a new dispatch protocol. I have to say, the relations between police and fire clearly were evident last night, and it has really been evident at specifically calls. Unfortunately, there was a fatality on Seymour Road, but they worked so well together. This was last month, November 9th or 10th. So they did an extrication and happened within 3 minutes, and I guess PD and FD are working really, really well together, so that's very good. Engine 6 has been partially retired at this point because they're concerned about it traveling down. That's the ladder truck. They're concerned about it going down the road. I talked about the expedition tonight. Santa and Mrs. Claus are this coming Saturday at the Human Services Rotary Party. Tony will be there, I guess, right? Yep, and for the Southbury Training School, except for those who are watching from the audience, we're at the firehouse from noon to 3 to meet Santa, and then we're out on the truck on the 20th and 21st. And Human Services was supposed to happen last night, but it had to be canceled. Because Mary Ellen was busy, and that's, I guess, it, because I've also Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything I would report on has already been covered. The police are meeting tonight. Economic Development was supposed to meet tomorrow night. It's been canceled. And I think Coupop is the 19th, if I'm not mistaken, right? So that's my report.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
You know it? Aye.